People don't leave jobs, they leave leaders and bosses.
If you got it happening again and again and again, the common denominator is you.
When you lose employees, the cost on the low side is 3 months' salary and on the high side is 12 months' salary, depending on the position. And you don't realize it, it's actually quite a hidden cost.
One way or another, something I'm doing is causing this or not doing.
Or why can't they be like I was when I was an employee? I just do the job properly.
It's a breakdown of the relationship between employee and employer. And if we can stop that relationship breaking down, we've decreased the turnover of employees. It's that simple.
He wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a terrible boss.
He was a great guy, actually.
Yeah.
Dude has a heart of gold. And in this case, a few small tweaks, and he actually became an employer of choice in his town. So huge opportunities, and that's what we want to talk about now.
The sad reality is that employees don't leave their job. They leave their boss or leader. And the costs of losing good employees are much larger than most realise, both in financial terms and in lost opportunities and all the stress involved. Yet many business owners are doing or not doing things that are actively causing their employees to think about resigning or to actually resign. Tune into this week's podcast where we dig into all the things that cause employees to leave so you can stop making these mistakes. Well, hi there, I'm your host, Tony Fraser-Jones, host of the Profitable Tradie podcast, and here with my good mate, sidekick Phil Smith.
G'day.
Phil, it's good to see you, man.
Always good to see you, mate.
Yeah, you're looking fine today.
You're looking smashing yourself.
Bit of beard care routine going on, is there?
Well, not really, actually. That's the problem. Don't get too close. You might see just how rugged it is. Rugged and manly and handsome.
Stop it. Let's desist from that line of questioning.
Yeah, let's do it.
What's the topic for today?
We are talking about employees and teams. So how important it is to understand the triggers or causes of employee turnover. Because, for sure, some turnover is inevitable. You are going to lose employees from time to time and for valid reasons. People change jobs for reasons outside of the control of the business owner. All right. Could be that your wife gets a great job in a different city or town or state, or maybe a relative gets sick, needs care in a different part of the country. Lots of things could come up.
Yeah, look, people leave for a valid reason, but a lot of people leave for reasons that we want to dig into today that you don't want to be the cause of. And here's the interesting fact. If you look at the research, and I've done this because way back in a past life, this is what I studied, the studies show that, and these are done by professors in universities, and there's heaps and heaps of studies on this, that up to 70% of employee turnover can be explained by the actions of the managers and the leaders of the business.
Yeah.
Which is critical. And proactive management, good culture, future prospects, etc., can make a really big difference on how well you do as a business owner in terms of retaining your employees.
Yeah.
So, as I said, people don't leave jobs, they leave leaders and bosses. And what we do or don't do is incredible here. And look, I do get it. It's tough to be on top of all this stuff when you've got jobs running all over the place, you've got issues popping up, and to you as the employer, it feels like your team are just being ungrateful or unreasonable, or they just can't do what they're asked. Or why can't they be like I was when I was an employee? I just do the job properly. I get all that. It's really tough, but unfortunately, you're the captain of the ship, and so it's up to you to make these changes. And the fact that it's difficult doesn't change the fact that this is huge and has a massive impact on your business. So we've got to get into this.
Yeah, totally. And look, when we think about a study like that, of course, the people that are being interviewed, the way they got this information is they interviewed all the people that left. So it's from the employee's perspective. And of course, they're going to say it was the boss's fault. Not many of them will put their hand up and say, you know what, I'm a dick.
That's a technical term.
That is going to be part of it. But the reality is that, whether or not you're right or they're right or anything like that, what the research does point to is that it's a breakdown of the relationship between employee and employer. And so regardless whose fault it is or who's the dick or who's right or who's wrong, it doesn't actually matter. It's the breakdown of that relationship, which is what we're talking about. And if we can stop that relationship breaking down, we've decreased the turnover of employees. It's that simple.
That's right. And as the employer, you're the one who's going to have to make the changes because they're probably not. And
totally.
So the responsibility is going to sit in your court, which I know is tricky, but man, when you master this, it makes a huge difference. Massive difference.
Massive. And I'm sure you got a story to kick us off.
I do have a story about Raiden, who is a coaching client who we've worked with for a period of time. Had a kitchen joinery business, and he had 7 tradespeople out in the factory, doing between sort of 190 and 220K a month in revenue. Now, 8 weeks prior to joining the program, he had 4 people resign within 2 weeks. It was just crushing for him.
Yeah.
2 went to join his main competitor. 1 left another smaller competitor just down the road, and he was absolutely gutted. And the loss of those employees not only sent him into a tailspin on the financial side, revenue was down by 60, 70, 80K a month, but he's actually angry, hurt, and frustrated. And then 4 weeks after that, another employee left to join the competitor. And he realised that, there was something actually going on here. It's not like they're all unreasonable and ungrateful. He realised that and maybe he needed to look in the mirror and figure out what was actually going on. And that's, one of the reasons he reached out to us and joined the $1 Million Tradie coaching program. And so that's what can happen. And a lot of the things that he was doing is the stuff we're going to dig into today. There were reasons people were leaving. Yeah. And it wasn't because they were all bad buggers and, ungrateful.
No, I mean, it's kind of like the 3 bastards rule we talk about, right? Like, I mean, if you're out and about in the street and you meet a bastard, well, that sucks. They're a bastard. You meet a second bastard. Well, you're having a bad day. You're unlucky. You meet a third bastard. Guess what? You are the bastard. That's right. So in this case, Raiden, look, I mean, if he's listening, Raiden, I'm sorry. We've talked about it. I'm sure you don't mind us saying it's like, in this case, mate, like, if you got it happening again and again and again, the common denominator is you. And that's when you have to give a good, hard look in the mirror and think, well, one way or another, something I'm doing is causing this.
Or not doing.
Or not doing. And, it might not actually be that I'm, as you say, actively doing anything badly, but something is leading to this and I'm the center point of it. So I need to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, and I think the thing in this situation for Raiden is he wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a terrible boss.
He was a great guy, actually. Yep. Dude has a heart of gold. Yep. And honestly, I think he would have been a great employer in so many ways. And I think, we're going to dig into some of the reasons today. But one of the big things here is it's about how you come across. And in this case, a few small tweaks, and he actually became an employer of choice in his town. So huge opportunities, and that's what we want to talk about now is, we run into problems if we don't do it. What are they going to be?
Yeah, the first thing is that the cost financially is massive. When you lose employees, and again, this is research-based stuff. It's not stuff I'm just pulling out of the air. It's the cost on the low side is 3 months' salary, and on the high side is 12 months' salary, depending on the position. Now, the more specialised and senior, the higher the cost. So it costs you a lot of money, and you don't realise it. It's actually quite a hidden cost. It's not like a line item appears in your P&L of, employee turnover cost.
Yeah.
It costed in lost revenue.
HR stuff up cost.
Yeah, HR balls up. Yeah. It's costed it in lost revenue, lost opportunities, decreased margins because there's poor organisation, loss of skill, all that sort of stuff. And not to mention your overheads go up because you've just got to find more people, so it takes time. That's massive. Look, your factory's smaller. I've sort of touched on this. The less tradespeople you have, the less revenue you can do, the less money you can make. The time cost of hiring is enormous. It takes a lot of time, and you may not get the person you want straight away, so it could take a couple of cracks, a couple of bites at the cherry if you like to actually get it done. The emotional cost is massive for an owner. You do feel, no matter how long you've been in the game, you do feel a little bit hurt and let down when people leave.
Well, look, actually, if I can jump in there, the emotional cost for the team is there too, and I think this is something that's easy to overlook. Is definitely there's an emotional cost for the owner, but I mean, pretty hard when, if I'm a team member, let's say me and you, Tony, we're both part of, somebody's crew. We're both, drain layers working together. We've worked together for 10 years and then suddenly you leave and it's just me. And I'm like, my bro's gone. It'd be pretty hard to deal with. Especially if my bro's gone and he's gone with a sour taste in his mouth. Chances are there's sour taste in my mouth too.
Yeah. Training costs, obviously. So you get new people in, you got to train them up. There's probably mistakes, rework, callbacks, stuff that has to be fixed, and there's the ripple effect. And this is what Raiden experienced. One person goes, and then all of a sudden, it almost gives other people permission to go as well, or they get approached by, they hear how good the offer is. The first 4 weeks or 6 weeks at some other job, and they're like, well, it's not like that here. Maybe I should check that out as well. And so they start actively looking, whereas before they were sort of passively looking. So that ripple effect can be massive, and that's really, really damaged a lot of business owners.
Yeah, totally. So on the other hand, though, if we get this right and we can be proactive and actually manage the relationship better with our staff.
Well, the key thing about business is you need a great team to grow revenue and profit. So it limits the financial loss and you make more money. And it's way easier to grow a team and revenue when you retain your existing employees, because then if you add employees, you're actually ahead of the game. What can happen is you get in the position where certainly when you get a larger team, you might lose a couple of people and you've got to hire 2 people to get back where you were. Now to get ahead, you need to hire 3 or 4 people. It's much easier if you only need to hire 1 or 2.
That's it.
Way easier. There's less drama. less stress, and life is just easier when you've got a good crew and they're sticking around, and you get the positive ripple effect. So it's the reverse. People aren't leaving. It means you're doing a good job, and you'll probably attract other people to work for you. You'll actually take them off the competitors rather than the other way around.
Totally. So some pretty big upsides. So let's talk about how we can actually do this.
We want to be clear on what are the things that cause, employee turnover. And so there's like 8 or 9 of them. We want to dig into them and pull them apart so that you know what they are. And when you know what they are, obviously you can stop doing them or start doing what you need to.
Yeah.
And it turns out that employees don't just leave because they're ungrateful, and there's a bunch of reasons. And the thing is, we've got to understand it from their point of view, not from ours as an employer, because sometimes we're just like, well, they're ungrateful. They don't see all the stuff that I do for them. But that's not how they see it. And that's really the key here.
Also, ungrateful or not, I mean, it actually doesn't matter.
They're leaving anyway.
They're leaving anyway, right? So, and the thing is like, if everybody you meet is ungrateful, well, maybe you're ungrateful. It's the same thing. It's the 3 bastards
That's
rule.
right.
So now and then you will have an ungrateful employee, but again, what made them ungrateful? People don't start off ungrateful. They become ungrateful.
Yeah.
Probably because you're ungrateful.
That's right. And there's a proverb. I don't know. Maybe it's an ancient Chinese proverb, perhaps.
Well, I want to say ancient Chinese proverb anyway, just because it sounds good. But
that's right. It always sounds like it's got more wisdom. But
that's right.
It's like if you want to understand someone, walk a mile in their shoes. And that's the same. You've got to really see the business from the employee's side of it.
I always said if you want to understand someone, spend 10 minutes wearing their undies. But hey, look, man, that's cool. Up to you. Anyway, let's get into these reasons for leaving, because like you said, there's 8 or 9, and the better we understand them, the more we can combat them. So,
number one is a toxic work culture. It's just not a nice place to be. It's just not fun. And so a toxic work culture will be a place where there's a lack of respect and appreciation. If people aren't showing appreciation or respect, that's really toxic. And appreciation could be as simple as just thanking people for doing a good job or acknowledging their efforts. But a lot of business owners never do that. They're too busy. Or they're like, well, that's their job. They should just do it. I mean, you think about a child. They need positive praise. Substitute child for employee, same thing. Talked about that many times.
And with praise, I think just important to understand, like with praise, try not just praise, but encouragement. So difference being praise is good job, well done, that's great. Encouragement is, hey, I can see you've really been working hard on that, and it shows. I can see you've really been paying attention to the training we've done, and look at the results. I can see that you've really put in the hours here, and you're becoming an expert in the field.
I appreciate you doing that call out on the weekend. That really meant a lot.
Yeah, and again, it's not well done final. It's I can see you're making progress with the hard work you're making. It's not final. There's no end to it. We're getting better and better. It's that constant, never-ending improvement which we're looking for.
Yeah, toxic work culture, is a place where there's poor trust between employees. So there's a blame culture, and between the worker and the boss as well. It's not just worker-boss. It could be between employees. That's another really dangerously toxic thing when people don't take responsibility and they blame the other person. They're like fingers pointing in all directions except back at themselves. Here's another thing that is massively important. You've got to be really careful as a boss, making promises that you don't or can't keep. The classic is telling someone you're probably thinking about them for a promotion or a pay rise.
Dangling the carrot,
but not doing anything about it. That's a terrible thing to do. And you do that sometimes out of a good place. If you find yourself doing it and you're not certain you're going to be able to do it, shut up.
Yeah.
Say nothing. Poor communication is another one. If there's no meetings, there's unclear instructions, there's not a clear chain of command, maybe there's an ops manager and who does the person report to? They don't quite know. That's a big problem. No values, no rules of the game. How do we roll around here? It's not clear how things are done. And if there's no fun or no best friend at work, like a big thing that helps with it, retention and employee satisfaction is a best friend at work. Now, that doesn't mean you're besties, but it means you've got mates at work that you have fun with. It feels like your place. It feels like your tribe. So
not just fun, but you can be open and vulnerable with as well. If you're having a hard time at home and you get to work, you can say to your workmate, "Dude, I'm having a hard time." You feel supported and you feel like you feel seen and heard and basically loved for lack of a better word.
And it needs to be fun. If it's no fun at work and just grind, and there's no community, no sort of tribal affiliation, if you like, then it's just that's a toxic place, and people will leave that if it's like that.
Yeah, totally. So number 2 for me is a lack of accountability to results. It sounds back to front, but people want to win and feel like they're winning. So without a scorecard or scoreboard for the business and KPIs for each of your team members, they just don't know they're winning. And the big thing is you want winners on your team, and winners love to know that they're winning. You know, if I don't know I'm winning, then how do I feel, bought into what I'm doing? How do I feel fulfillment? How do I feel satisfaction? People think it's the other way. Don't expect too much, but it's not. You need to be able to win.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, most people think if you provide lots of accountability, you're going to be checking up on people and beating them up, but accountability is not like that. It's just helping people know that they've done the job that they need to and giving them feedback if they haven't.
Well, there's a difference in the way you provide the accountability there, right? If the accountability is provided in a way where it's like, hey, you screwed this up, fix it. That's kind of accountability. But if you're being held accountable because somebody's driving you towards better performance that they genuinely want for you, and that's going to benefit you somehow, then the thing is, it's not somebody checking up on you or kicking your ass. It's somebody keeping you on track so that you can get everything that you want. It's kind of like if you think about a mate, accountability, getting to the gym or something like that. And if I want a mate to hold me accountable, if he calls me up and says, "Did you go to the gym today?" and I say no, and he goes, "Well, you fat bastard," and then hangs up. I mean, it's kind of accountability, but it's really just a kick in the guts. Whereas if he calls me up and says, "Hey mate, you got to the gym yet today?" and I say no, and he goes, "Hey man, remember the goals, remember what we're doing. We're trying to get to, this goal weight, and we're trying to get to this lift and that lift, and you know what, man, I'm going to come and pick you up now. Let's go together." That's actually accountability as well, but it's positively charged. It's for my benefit, and I actually feel supported towards my own goals and winning, which is just completely different in the effect. So the way you provide that accountability is huge as well.
And this is massive. See, if you provide accountability for poor performers, they won't like that and they'll leave. They're the ones you want to leave, so that's mission accomplished. But for the people who are winners, they want to know that they've done a good job, and they thrive on the praise and the feedback. So accountability is crucial. If you don't have it, they'll be wondering, am I good enough? I kind of don't feel the vibe. I'm not feeling, like my cup is filled up. I'm not feeling confident because I just don't really know where I'm at.
And unfortunately here, the people that are going to get the most accountability are usually the ones that are doing the worst. And we often think the people that are doing the best, we don't provide any accountability because it's like, well, they're crushing it. Like, they don't need it. They don't need accountability. But by not providing that accountability, what we're actually doing is ignoring them and ignoring their success. And so they feel like they're busting their ass and getting nothing for it. No appreciation, no love, no props. And it's like, look, if you're providing accountability, you can be held accountable to a good result as well. And you need to do that in equal portion. So what's number 3?
Number 3 is no growth opportunities. So if there's no opportunity for your employees to improve, to grow their skills, or what we've talked about before, brightness of future. If there's no brightness of future for your team members, then they're really likely to leave, particularly if they're good, because good people want to grow, they want to improve, they want to develop, they want more career opportunities, they want more money, more responsibility. And you show them that you care by actually showing them that there is a path, that you've got a pathway mapped out for them. And that's not only wage and salary growth, which is important, but it's also skill growth and challenge as well. And here's the thing, if your business is not growing, if you're just the person who's like, well, I'm happy with where it is, that's a problem as a business owner, and you will have employees leave you because there are no opportunities. And I've said it before, and we've talked about it before, if you own a business, you pretty much have a responsibility to grow the business if you want to retain and attract good people.
Yeah.
Because there needs to be a pathway for them.
Yeah, and I think, again, don't shy away from, we're talking about, skill growth and salary and wage growth and everything in relation to work, but don't shy away from talking about life growth too. The thing is remember that you're hiring people, not robots. They're not here just to work for you. That's not their life's purpose in a lot of cases. And they have things they want to achieve outside of your employment. And actually you can help and support them and encourage them and cheer for them along the way. And actually the more you can lean into those opportunities as well and help them provide it, because again, work is a vehicle for life. Your business is a vehicle for your life, and the employment of your employees is a vehicle for their life. And so if you're brought into the growth of their life as well, that's going to be huge for them in terms of fulfillment and development and just actually feeling like they are enough, which is massive. So
yeah, and look, after we've done this podcast today, in our business, our team here, I'm running a session on how to create financial wealth, because I've had some success with that and I've learned a bit of stuff, and I want to share that with our team to help them lift themselves up. And people love that sort of thing. It might be wealth, it might be health, it might be relationships. And we know a lot of our members get relationship people to come and talk about. I mean, relationships are a big issue for young men. It's actually quite difficult these days.
Well, big issue for everybody, but
it's a big issue for young men, and there's a lot
of
of young men. It's still quite a male-dominated industry, and the first time when the first love goes wrong, we know that the apprentice or the young tradesperson is a mess for like a year while they try and sort their stuff out.
Yeah, pretty tough.
So all that stuff is huge. So give them opportunities. If you don't, they'll leave.
100%. So number 4, no feedback around performance, which is similar to what we were talking about with the accountability, but also different. So, aspects of this, you might not be providing coaching or, performance reviews. Basically, you're not checking in on their performance and not just holding them accountable, but helping them improve, which is really crucial, because if you're not doing that, you're not improving their skills. They're not getting better. They're not progressing. They're not feeling like you really care. If you do the accountability without the feedback around performance, all you're doing is holding the accountability, but you're expecting them to improve or change without, I guess, by osmosis. Second part of that is giving feedback on what they're doing well and what they need to improve on. So, sort of the same thing, but you need to make sure you do both. So as we mentioned earlier, not just what they need to improve on, but what they're doing well. That way they can replicate and repeat what they're awesome at, but then they can work on whatever they need to work on, and they get better. And they're more likely to be held accountable for good things than bad things, which is huge for fulfillment.
Yeah, so with the members of our $1 Million Tradie program, this is a huge part of the work of building great culture, is that feedback performance. And there's a couple of things that we insist our members do. One is at least a 6-monthly performance review with a set template, and the employee will fill it in beforehand. The employer fills it in beforehand. They go and talk about it. And then there's the 20-minute coaching session, which is an incredibly powerful tool, which you might want to put in your business as well. It's where you spend 20 minutes, the direct report spends 20 minutes with the person, ideally every week, but maybe sometimes it's a little bit longer than that, just talking about what are their wins, how they're getting on with their KPIs, and is there any issues or challenges or things that they need help with.
Yeah.
And that just shows you that kind of feedback loop, and it makes a massive difference. And what we've seen with our members when they put this in, their employee retention skyrockets.
Yeah.
Not only because they're doing the feedback, but it also tells the employee, hey, this person actually gives a shit about me. And there's a best way to show that you care is to actually care.
To actually care, yeah. And look, we've actually done an episode earlier on the 20. So if you're wondering more about how to do this, then look back through the episodes and you'll be able to find that. It'll be there for you.
Yeah.
And last part of the coaching thing is just actually coaching them. So when you find what they want to improve on, don't just tell them how to do it. And I think that's often where we can go wrong when we're coaching. See it all the time in our members. It's something we work on very, very strongly, even within our internal team members, as our department heads. We practice how to coach because, the big thing is, a lot of the time we say, hey, you need to improve on X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, we don't tell them how to improve, and we don't practice. So that would be the same as me saying, hey, Tony, when you tell stories, you need to make them more relatable. And you say, yeah, cool, I'll do that. And I say, awesome. And I think I've coached you. But if I haven't given you clarity on what relatable means, given you examples of how to do this, we haven't practiced it, we haven't role played it, then I've just said be more relatable and you've said okay. But I mean, like, how are you going to do that?
What does that even mean?
Yeah, what does that even mean? And if you knew how to do it, you'd have been doing it already. So the thing is, it's the same with your team too. When you're coaching them, don't say, hey, you need to be more personable and polite when you go into someone's home. They'll say, yeah, cool, I'll do that. But if you haven't talked about ways to be personable and polite, and how to, give great customer service, and then practiced it and role played it and given examples of well done and bad done behavior there, then how can they really understand what you mean?
Yeah.
If they did understand, they've been doing it already.
And if you don't give them effective coaching, then they lack confidence, and their performance and confidence just goes down, and they leave. They feel ashamed.
And you get frustrated because next week when you come back and they still haven't done it because they don't know how to do it, shock horror, they didn't learn it by osmosis, you're kicking their ass again. And not only that, but you're saying, geez, I've talked about this with you 4 times.
Are you not smart or something? And that's going to make them leave as well.
We've talked about this again and again, and you keep not doing it, and they're thinking to themselves, I thought I was doing it. But they don't understand what you meant. You never actually coach them, so you need to nail that.
Number 5 is overworking them and not giving them an opportunity to have good balance in their life. So it's treating them like, pretty much like a machine or a slave to the business. And here's the thing. Every employee has an emotional bank account. And in fact, this is in every relationship. And if all you ever do is make withdrawals, eventually that employee's emotional bank account will get overdrawn. And when it's empty, it's over.
Yeah.
And some people are incredible. Their emotional bank accounts are incredibly deep, and those are the ones that hurt you the most because you like keep drawing out, but eventually even those people will say, this is bankrupt. And so what this means is they're working too much, you're expecting too much of them, they're under too much pressure, and eventually they're just like, screw this, I've had enough, I'm going to go get something that's better than this. So other things here is like not giving them leave at appropriate times. Now, some people want leave at certain times, and you can't always do that. But it is important as an employer to be somewhat flexible to help people get what they want. You know, if there's really important things in their life, important life events, then it's really important you try and make those work. Now, it's not always possible, but often it is with a bit of work and a little bit of shuffling things around. Some people don't want overtime because they have lots of family situations. Some people do want overtime because they want the money. Everyone's an individual here. So it's understanding their individual situation and needs and not using a size fits all for the work and the balance for the person.
Well, on top of that, I just want to point out that when you look at overwork, or a lack of balance, sometimes when we're driving people too hard, it could be hours. Maybe you're asking for like physically too much of their time, but it can often be expectations as well. Certain roles, definitely this is going to be a thing. I remember, obviously I had a pretty big background in sales and training salespeople once upon a time. And one of the biggest factors with that as a profession is that the hard part with sales is, you hit a target and guess what? Next week you got to hit it again. And the week after that you got to hit it again. And you hit it too many weeks in a row. And what happens? They put it up. And now you got to hit that new target again and again until you hit it so many times that they put it up. And that just carries on and on and on and on and on until you fail. So the thing is it just gets asked for more and more and more. And every time you do more, now they expect more until they expect so much that you inevitably fail because it reaches a point of, I just can't hustle that hard. But when you reach that point, you've actually been hustling too hard for a long time. And so you're also burnt out. And the thing is that's really obvious with sales, but it does happen in every role. The more someone performs, the more we expect them to perform, and it will get to a point where you've actually just pushed them to an unreasonable point. So you've got to be very mindful of where somebody's at in terms of their energy levels, and whether or not they're approaching burnout. Like, are you thrashing this horse too hard?
Yeah, and look, for the tradespeople or the technicians who are out in the field, it's sometimes a little bit simpler. But if you take some of your key management people, if you've got a bigger business, you've got an ops manager, estimators, general managers and stuff, maybe your ops managers, only at work for 9 hours a day, but they're thinking about it for 15 hours a day, or actually 20 hours a day because they can't sleep at night because basically their mind's jammed up with too much stuff. They're basically where you were before you hired them, which is probably, you have an understanding of this, and if you've been there, you should be a bit more sympathetic. So you've got to look at that and manage that, because that overwhelm, that out of balance will really kill you, and they'll be like, hey, I can't do this anymore, I'm out of there. And if you'd just been a little bit more proactive, you would have hired someone else or restructured things. Or often it's about coaching them with some of the skills you've learnt to deal with, rather than just letting them die in a ditch.
Yeah, or team leader or foreman, maybe they've got 3 or 4 direct reports and they're doing a really good job, so you give them a 5th, and they're doing a great job, so you give them a 6th. You're doing a great job, so you give them a 7th, and this carries on and on and on. And the thing is they were burnt out at 6, but you get up to 9 before they actually fall in a heap. And then so you reduce it to 8, and guess what? They still can't get up. But it's because actually there was such a weapon that they just sort of lumped it for a while. So the thing is, again, it's an expectation thing. You got to make sure you manage people's energy.
I think this is where it hurts people the most, and when employers get hurt the most is when their weapons leave because you basically took them for granted. Yeah. And the same happens in your romantic relationships. They break up because you've just taken someone for granted.
Well, someone tolerates so much that the point is they get to a point where they've actually tolerated enough.
Emotional bank account is bankrupt.
Yeah, and at that point you start trying to desperately make deposits, but it's too late. And you can get there pretty quick. All right, looking at number 6, micromanagement and a lack of empowerment. So, this is particularly for good people. People that are newer to the team, and again, I use the word good people, meaning people that are further along in terms of skill and development. Usually people like that are also going to be just good buggers. But it's not to say that people early on are not good. What I mean by people early on is they probably need a level of micromanagement because they don't know how to do their job. When someone knows how, though, you're going to get to a point where, if you actually micromanage and you get too involved, you're showing no trust and you're damaging trust in general. So it doesn't let them grow. They don't take initiative and they don't get better. They've got to be able to make mistakes if they're capable. because it shows you trust them and it leaves things in their hands.
Yeah, and then number 7 is like the flip side of that, is some people you don't want to micromanage, but some people you actually have to be across them and show a lot of support for them. And so that's, this is for your low-skilled people, and that's often people starting out or people who aren't familiar with a particular job, or perhaps some of your employees you don't have quite as much confidence and need a bit more hand-holding. Like your apprentices. They're going to need way more support, and if you don't give them the support, they're going to feel like they're at sea, they're going to feel like they're failing, and they'll get into this weird sort of shame. They're ashamed of where they're at, and people just don't stay in that space. It's too difficult, and they will leave.
Yeah.
They'll leave because it damages their sense of self too much. So
we see this all the time, right? People come in and they say, I got chucked into a role, chucked in the deep end, no support, no help. And then I started, I didn't know what to do. And then I started getting told off for the fact that I didn't know what to do. Like, it's madness. Like, how was I supposed to learn?
Yeah, so this is a tricky one, because on the one side, you've got to provide people empowerment and room to move if they can do it. And on the other side, if they're not there, you've got to make sure you give them the support and the guardrails, because both of those things will end up with turnover.
Yeah, and there's a great tool here that we could get into another day called situational leadership, which was developed years back.
Which we've done a podcast.
We've done
on.
a pod. Oh, we have. Oh, great. Well, there we go. You can look back and find that. So yeah, that's definitely an important way to look at this. On to number 8, which is the pay and conditions.
And can I just interject?
Yeah, if I could interrupt your interruption.
Yeah, don't interrupt my interruption. We've left this till last deliberately.
Yeah, pretty deliberately.
Yeah, because it's actually not as important as people think.
Well, I think the thing is people usually think this is first on the list.
That's right.
But honestly, if you've got this coming up, it's because you've probably failed on at least a handful of the ones prior. It's funny how people will usually, like, your pay and conditions probably aren't that bad, honestly. But the reason people find them bad is because you're not doing all the other stuff, and so therefore the pay and conditions don't outweigh the crap that they're putting up with. So yeah, we've left it till later in the list for that reason. So yeah, basically if we look at this, if you pay good people well below market rate and never have discussions about future pay rises, they're going to leave. It's that simple, because why would they work for nothing when they could work for something somewhere else? So, if you want to be losing people, be in the bottom 25% of payers. Obviously, if you want to keep them, the opposite applies. But if you want to lose them, then pay them peanuts. And you get the proverbial monkeys, don't you? Look, next one is, you can wait until the very last minute and pay somebody more, but only when they ask for it, rather than front-footing it and being proactive with paying conditions. So if that's the way you're operating, don't be surprised when you lose people, because if you only get a pay rise when you ask for it, then you don't feel appreciated with the pay rise. You feel like you're getting what you asked for, finally, only when I was a squeaky enough wheel. Whereas if we look at the opposite, if I'm giving somebody a pay rise proactively, front-footing it, then they're going to be surprised by that, pleasant surprise, and they go, wow, geez, I must really be appreciated here. So, when you're able to do this, you should do it before they ask. It's really, really crucial.
That's massive.
It's massive.
And what we've found is, to stop people leaving, you do want to be in the top 25%. That's massive. Because good people deserve to be paid well.
Yeah. And honestly, like, if you're paying good people really well, I guarantee you're still making money on that, because they're good people. They're going to be more efficient. They're going to be driving productivity. They're going to be driving the vibe and culture of your business. Like, honestly, they're worth their weight in gold. So pay them the gold. That's really important. And, if you want to lose people, then, don't try understanding how much an employee is worth to your business in terms of revenue and profit. But if you want to keep them, that's crucial. You've got to be understanding that. Good tradesperson could be worth, 100 to 120K a year in profit, minimum.
Yeah, really? and the people, if you want to lose people, your attitude typically is, what, they want an extra $5,000 a year? There's no way I can afford that. But you have no idea of how much money they're making you, and you don't put it in the context in which the decision needs to be made, which is, wow, this person, if I hire them, is going to make me an extra 120K in gross profit off the jobs, and I'm paying them $5,000. I'm ahead 115 grand.
Well, if we do the maths on this, I mean, most tradespeople, in a van on their own, if they're a skilled tradie, they're going to be able to do 20 to 30K worth of revenue per month for you. And so if we look at that, let's call it 25. So over a year, it's 300K. If you've got a 40% GP margin, it's $120,000 in gross profit. Now you say, yeah, but I've still got to pay for other stuff. I'm like, yeah, sure. But as far as that person's concerned, that actually is profit, because you've already paid their wages. There's actually not that much more that comes out of that, per person. It's more like you have general costs of running your business. So when you look at this, let's call it 120K in profit. But the thing is like when someone says, I can't afford another 5K to pay this person, sure, if you paid them another 5K, it comes out of the 120. The difference is a good person probably makes you more than 120K because they're more efficient. They drive productivity. So it's not a 40% margin with that person. It's 45. It's 50. So that 120 is actually 150. It's 170. And at that point, like, what's 5K?
And that person is often used to train other apprentices, and it's like this never-ending, increasing good cycle.
They grow the factory.
That's right.
So, like, honestly, please pay this person because they're making you heaps. So you need to make sure they feel appreciated, and pay is going to be part of that.
And here's the thing. The worst employers have the biggest problem of people leaving for money, for more money. This is true. The worst employers have the biggest problem of people leaving for more money because they're not doing any of these other things. And the only thing that the employee is judging the value of this job on is the dollars per hour.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right, but we have a ninth one.
Number 9. This is the bonus. The bonus one is all of this stuff is important. The key to understand is what matters here is how the employee perceives it. It doesn't matter what you think about it. It's about how they perceive it. And the next thing is the employee does not understand your intent. Your intent could be good. Now, Rayden's intent was good, but his execution was poor, and that's what counts.
Yeah.
So intent counts for nothing. Actions speak louder than words, and that's the only way that your employees can judge how much you value them is from the actions you take.
Well, this has been studied many times. The fact is that we judge ourselves on intentions. So when we act, we judge what our intent was. That's how we, weigh up whether or not we're good or not. We judge everybody else on their actions. So the way that your employees are judging you is on the actions they see and their perception of your actions. The way you're judging those same actions is your intent with those actions. And your intent may not match their perception. And so the fact is that actually, whatever you intended is irrelevant because however they perceive it is what they will act on. And so if you want to keep employees, you need to make sure their perception is in the right place and matching your intent as much as possible because perception is reality. There's no getting around it.
That's right. And here's how it plays out. Most people have good intent to their employees, but they get too busy to take the action that they want. So your thought process, and you may have experienced this, if you're listening, is, hey, I'm definitely going to get around to doing those performance reviews, or I'm definitely going to get around to having a chat to you about your salary, your wages, but I'm just busy at the moment, so I'll just put it on the back burner. It keeps being put on the back burner. Your intent is relatively good, but there's never any action.
Totally.
And therefore the reality is that you don't, the perception is a reality for them, and they're like, well, they don't really care.
Yeah. And again, if we look back over the 8 points prior, you might say, I don't have a toxic work culture. I do hold people accountable. There are growth opportunities. I give feedback on performance. I don't overwork people. There is balance. I don't micromanage, and I empower people and I pay them well. But if the perception of your employees is the opposite, then that's what it is. It doesn't matter what you think it is. It matters what they think it is. So that's crucial. So should we land this point?
That's a good place to end it.
Yeah.
Having a great team of committed employees is critical to growing a profitable business. That's fun for you to own as well. But you've got to be aware of the reasons why employees actually will turn over and why they'll leave, and actively work and front foot this so you can build a culture and retain the great employees. Now, your bank account and your stress levels will really thank you if you front foot this stuff. Thanks heaps for listening. We'll catch you all again next time.
See you later.